Yeah, of course. Well, hopefully people aren't bored about Taiwan and Pelosi, because that was probably the biggest driver of gold this week. Of course, we did see a pretty strong bump, and I'll bring up a chart showing you on a daily basis what it did this week. So the most recent 5 candlesticks have, again, perfectly used that level of support. If we go back to previous episodes of the show, you'll see how just amazingly gold is reacting to the technicals at the moment, but it's bounced off that level of support, posted consecutive bullish candlesticks higher straight off the back of Taiwan and Pelosi. But of course, that's kind of fizzled out of the market, and we're back to the boring old trade that is gold. UBS cut their forecasts from 1,700 to 1,650. Most other banks aren't really updating anything at the moment. Again, I'd like to bring you something more interesting or entertaining, but some very muted trading in gold. And as I've been saying for a long time, it'd be a good hedge against inflation, a good store of value, a good place to have a portion of your portfolio, maybe in some Australian miners that have been beaten down. But whether it's the hot thing at the moment, I can't really pull the trigger as of yet. So unfortunately, that's your update on gold this week. But it is something I'm always watching. And I think once it does rear its head and once it does come back, it'll definitely be something you want part of your portfolio. I'm just making the call that maybe just not yet.
Okay, so in terms of another thing, I think I read a little bit about JP being caught up in something to do with gold as well. Is that right?
Yeah, so unlike Louis, I have some very exciting news about gold this week. I said to Louis before the show I could probably speak to you about this for half an hour if you gave me the time. But basically what it is a trial of JP Chase, their former head of precious metals. And the trial, I've read all through it, is very, very interesting. It basically gives an insight into their trading desk for precious metals, which actually really dominates the market. Their footprint and the amount of trades they execute and clear for this market is huge. So the trial is actually on Michael Nowak, who ran the desk for quite an extended period of time. He's being trialled in Chicago along with colleagues Greg Smith and Jeffrey Ruffo for conspiring to manipulate gold and silver markets. So pretty big charge. And if you look at some of the numbers involved with this trial, they are huge. And as I said, based on JP Morgan's impact on this market, it could be some obviously very big figures and very strong manipulation of these markets over a pretty extended period. So I'll give you a bit more of a summary. I guess this part of the business is a big money maker for JP Morgan because of how much of that market they do control. And they notched up annual profits between 109 million and 234 million a year between 2008 and 2018. And in 2020, JP Morgan made $1 billion in precious metals.
Just in precious
metals, as the pandemic created unprecedented arbitrage opportunities, I guess, with some of the drops we're seeing. And I guess a lot of the profits they made, not even just in that year, but other years, is really being, the light is really being shone on how that sort of happened. So I guess let me highlight the impact that JP Morgan actually have on these markets, and I'll take 2010 as an example. So in 2010, 40% of all transactions in the gold market were cleared by JP Morgan. Wow. So nearly half. So I guess a lot of people would look at a lot of the investment banks there and across the world and say for one investment bank to have that amount of control over a market could be, I guess, pretty big. So basically what's happening is these people were very handsomely remunerated for their impact, and some of the trades they were putting through obviously weren't in line with what they were supposed to be doing. So let me give you an example here. Apparently, we're looking at actual trial data here. A lot of the jurors, I guess, audibly gasped when these figures were sort of released to the court. So from 2008 to 2016, total profit allocated to Mr. Ruffo was $70 million US. Wow. Mr. Smith, $117 million US, and Mr. Nowak made the bank $186 million just in precious metals trades. Now, no one knows the actual figures because it was not disclosed to the court what those figures should have been based on what was actually being given to the bank in orders and stuff to be actually placed. So I think the fact that a spokesperson from JP Morgan actually was not willing to disclose this to the court does give you some sort of insight into that. But the numbers they believe here are extremely inflated, and a lot of these people are looking at some pretty serious jail time. So I'm not sure if we'll ever get an insight into how inflated these figures really are. But I think you can see here by the way they control the market, I think these people saw a pretty good opportunity to make some pretty good money off the back of some pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? Volatile conditions, and I guess they had the opportunity to manipulate it, and they have, but the outcome of this court case I think will be very, very interesting.